you know. And Detroit, I remember Detroit as being a real place. And these pictures, like Alex really brilliantly curated. I mean, he's responsible for the choices. And it's real interesting. It made me want to do more stuff. I have all this stuff here. So now I hope that Alex and I can do a book together. You know, for the 2 years in Detroit. There's a movie called 2 Days in the Valley. Well, this is 2 years in Detroit. I don't know what the title is. I suggested something before I forgot it already. You know? But I mean, because I liked a lot of stuff here. It's never bored, and that's the way it should be. I mean, you know, that was the first place where I could go, and you never knew. It's a big city, a serious city, you know, and the big problems, you know, also. But there's so much hope and promise and everything else, and there the arts. There's you know, just stupid things like accidents, you know, and just daily life. So I mean, that was an eye-opener for me as far as just human condition. I mean, I think it was important to. I mean, you have all these things that go into your system that you're going to, you know, use in your work. But Detroit, I think, was really important that it was important that I go to Milltown because it's on farm territory. I mean, you're in, or you know, Sullivan County, which is like, it's very isolated, and you need to be able in a situation like that. And it's also important to be in a situation where a city that's, I think that's in some ways very normal, or more middle America, not middle America. It seems more American to me than New York City is not America. This is from another planet. Right? San Francisco is different and, you know, strange and wonderful in a lot of ways. And Sullivan County is like, okay, going out to, you know, farmland. You know, that's what I keep on thinking. So you have to be someplace where people have problems and people have victories and successes to give you, make you more rounded, well-rounded as far as photographing things for the rest of your life, maybe. You know? So I mean, I can't put in the words, but I'm trying, on how much fun it was, you know, looking at what Alex came up with. This is, I mean, the summit stuff. Originally, I was going to try to, you know, go through stuff, and Alex kept on suggesting, why don't you just give me the negatives? Let me go through. And I did it. So there. So thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it has sort of like a soft, heavy metal
Yeah,
content.
a lot of silver in it. Lots of silver.
Hey, Alex.
Hey,
How are you?
fine. Mr. Reed,
Yeah.
are you prepared to give a dissertation?
I already gave it, I think. Really?
So he came out.
We need a new group.
Yay!
We need a new group. Everybody knows about Mr. Reed, I would assume. But he has a lot of secrets. And what I wanted to do at this point in time was to try to go back to his earlier past that a lot of us don't know too much about, and kind of explore, say, some of the historical contents of what he used to do when he first got started in this medium, mainly photojournalism, and how he wound up in Detroit and subsequently been moving through the system ever since. And subsequently joining a very prestigious photographic agency. While other people still knocking at the door, he got in rather easily. So I like to go back through that and say, you started off in Newark.
No. Newark? Oh, I went to school in Newark, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm trying to figure the next one.
Good stuff.
What?
It's a good start.
Good start? I don't know.
Yeah. This is Newark during an interesting time, I would assume.
Oh, there's 60, 65, 66, so 69. And Newark riots happened.
Yeah.
And
Were you doing images at that point of your life, or?
I took pictures the last summer after graduating high school, 65, and then in August, because I got myself a camera for birthday present, a camera which I bought, and what? Yeah, Instamatic 104, and 2 weeks later I got a Sheikah mat. That's one of them. So I took pictures until, let's see, well, I basically ran out of time. So I didn't pick up a camera again until 68. I took photographers in elective and art school. And so, yeah, there's a blank space of time. The first picture I took, when I was 10 years old, my mother, in front of the Christmas tree.
Could you close the door, please? Get that noise inside there.
I didn't touch the camera again until
Thank you.
summer of 65. That was my first birthday present to myself.
So what did you photograph then?
People.
65.
People. I mean, I remember I took pictures of there's a woman friend, I think she was a nurse's aide down by the waterfront. I took pictures of cats, I took pictures of the moon, and it's the time exposures with a swimming reflex of, I was working public service for a brief period of time, and I was taking pictures of a co-worker and ghost in the basement, you know, just fooling around, you know, and just, you know, taking pictures. You take pictures, you take pictures, you know. Then the last year when I took as an elective, I was doing pictures of like portraits. Some portraits of guy Clark. I can't remember his last name, but he was the class communist, I guess, or left winger, you know. Then there's his two friends, Eileen and Kathy Farkas. I still remember that. Right? Anyway, this picture of him that looked like something out of blow up, and this picture of a hot dog vendor, which I remember, who was how do you say? He's just interesting. It was the first street picture I ever took. You know, just somebody on the street you don't know, just hanging out smoking a cigarette, that kind of stuff. And pictures of portraits of people I knew, just around. And basically that was just fooling around. And it took me that was something like, okay, 69. I didn't get a job until 77. It's not just that I was bad at freelancing, basically erasers that kept me from getting a job. I mean, there's all kinds of, I won't go into different kind of ways. It got so bad, I put in a built-in litmus test, which was, I had a reference in when I was talking to somebody over the phone, they couldn't tell from my voice whether it was black or white. So what I did was, when I sent in my bio, there'd be reference to the fact that I was black, because it's a black photography show. And then I'd never hear from them again. Before, they were very enthusiastic, because I knew my way around, you know, the camera, or the way I guess I was thinking about stuff, and they liked that. But I never heard from them again. Now, the funny thing is, last year, at New Jersey, I was asked to be a judge for New Jersey Pictures of the Year, and the same place where I couldn't get a job. I was asked to be a judge. It was great. I mean, it's different times. Yeah, it's still difficult. I mean, still, I know a lot of black people.
So what were you doing during that time?
I was working in a hospital. I worked in a hospital at St. Fanboy General.
What kind of work was that?
Orderly. And I worked at St. Vincent's for till 77.
But you were still engaging in the...
I was doing photography. I mean, it was like 20-hour days. Who's not? I wanted to mind everybody.
In America.
That's American today. What you call it? I did 20-hour days with Donald, who left. He was here before. I met Donald in 69 to 70. And he became like my mentor. You know, Jedi Knight, and then here I'm the student there. And I mean, he's really amazing. I ran to him on 6th Avenue. I was still living per fanboy, and I didn't know how to get the Port of Authority.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's just I have a bad sense of direction when, you know, things like that, you know. I'm a lot better now. Anyway, so I'm asking him direction, and he saw I worked for his rock magazine, volunteer, no pay, you know, Zygote magazine. I asked him how to get to Port of Authority. I had this contact sheets from his rock pictures I was doing, and I had a Nikon camera, so we started talking, and he asked me if I wanted to come to the studio to see some work. And his stuff was really fucking powerful, really powerful. And he did this thing in his nursing home, the Greenwich nursing home, that was really way ahead of his time in the way it looked, I mean, just the way the people were treated. And it wasn't 5 years before, I think, what's his name, Walter Cronkite ran the pictures on this show with commentary about senior citizens. Right? Yeah, but they ran the photographs, and they didn't do stuff like move the camera around. They just respected the pictures.
So you went back to the studio often, or?
Well, he became like a mentor. I'd work there. I finished up at the hospital. I'd go to Donald's studio, and when I'd wait, sit and watch the park until he woke up, and then I'd go over. I worked the night shift, and I'd go over to his studio. I'd help in the studio, watch what he's doing, fall asleep, watching him print. So I learned how to print, and standing up in the dark room, I was exhausted, And then I go home. That's why I slept 3-4 hours a day. That's what it was. That took 6 years. 6 years. That's what was necessary. That's what was necessary. So, and I always took my contact sheets with me and prints I'd made, to work, and I'd stare at them and get pissed off at them, wonder how I could get better, and I'd show things to Donald, and he'd look at it and say, it's getting a little better, a little better. Because he's right, there's this stuff that's on the surface, which means shit, really. It's just on the surface, it's a beginning. And then there's the stuff that you go, further when you try to get into something. And Donald would look at the stuff and just careful. I mean, I've called Donald from, he's gotten calls from me at times when I was either scared or bored or just crazy from Beirut under fire once, under a table. I got through a phone, and to talk to Donald about stuff, and Donald would hear stuff going on in the back with me. I wouldn't mention that, all that kind of stuff. He's been like a father to me.
So how did you get to the Northwest?
Here?
Detroit.
I got a job because my car broke down with the Middletown Record, and
You were up there?
And you you stopped there and you went looking for a job as soon as your car stopped?
no, I went. What happened is I was teaching in a prison, Napanock, 1 day a week, and what happened?
You went to Detroit?
No, I had to tell you this other stuff.
Okay.
Detroit.
Okay.
It's a reasonable story. Anyway, so I was working on, was it Mondays or Tuesdays? I don't remember what day it was, but whatever those days, I think it was Monday. I'd drive to Napanock from East Orange, and I stayed over one night because I think I had a date coming to me from the hospital, and I stayed over one night to take an inmate the next day around to supervise and taking pictures. So we did that, and then as I was driving back to East Orange, my car broke down. So I was stuck in Middletown, and I was really depressed. I remember that, being depressed, and had to get to work at the hospital at night, and wandering around my M5, my Leica M5 camera, and trying to stay awake because the bus was coming at a certain time. And so I stumbled into this restaurant as the lights going down, and this guy is closing up his restaurant, he's cleaning up, and just before I hit the shutter, I saw a smiling face appear in the mirror, with a reflection of the window. So I took the picture and turned around, and this guy says, I can see by your camera that you're a man of distinction. Because I had Leica M5. And anyway, we started talking, and then he took me on a tour of the city, and we're just talking, like there's still time for the bus to come. And he said, how'd you like to change your lifestyle right now? And I've been trying to get a job in the worst possible way. I've been sending out, resumes and calling people. But again, I didn't want to take a job. By this time, I was pissed off too. I was not going to take a job. If somebody didn't want me, I didn't want them. That's all there's to it. So anyway, he takes me up to this paper. I thought it was like a little, someplace like this, this size. But it was a serious paper, Middletown Record, and they were the first newspaper in the country to use offset on a daily basis, things like that. And so I go there, and the guy, the executive editor, sounds like Jimmy Carter, and he and this reporter, Fred Kirsch, are good friends, because Fred Kirsch is their best writer on paper. And he just roams around doing things, and stuff like that. And so he introduced us, and so he asked me to come back and show some of my work. I did. And then they liked the stuff, and said they hope there's going to be an opening. Or one of the other photographers was giving a lot of trouble. They had 3 photographers. They said, just be patient, keep in touch. That lasted a year. I kept in touch for a year. Where else was I going to go? I still worked, and did stuff, and then finally the wrong person got fired, but I finally got a chance, and so I worked there for a year, and then the reporter I had met had gone into Detroit, and Detroit wanted to make a change. They wanted to try different. They wanted to put some more juice into their paper, so within graphics, So this guy, a consultant, was hired, and they, Fred Kirsch said, well, I happen to know this guy that's sort of interested. So again, they called me up and said, would you come to Detroit for a tryout? So no, first, could you send your portfolio? So I sent, and the portfolio I sent, the same thing for the Middletown record, I sent an art portfolio, which is what I basically was. I was an artist, wanted to use photography as an escape, you know, to get something that makes some money where I can go back doing art, right? So I sent stuff that was very, how do you say it? Well, nudes and things like that, you know, including nudes of myself. I did a series of, but you know, and all the little things I've been able to do, and some photo essays I've done. And they were off. I mean, not to say off. I mean, they were very different from what they were seeing. But you know, this is what you're going to get. You know. Now, by the time I'm at the Middletown Record, now I have a portfolio suitable for newspapers, right? But I sent that portfolio, but I also sent my own personal stuff because I want them to know what they're getting. You know. So they said, well, we'd like to come for a tryout. So I went there for a tryout, and then they said, we'll let you know if we decide how we can decide them in a week. A week went by, I didn't hear anything from them. 2 weeks went by, I didn't hear anything from them. So finally, I called them up and said, this guy Ben Burns, he was the managing editor, assistant managing editor. I said, well, did I get the job? Or what do you think? Bless you. And he says, yeah, you got the job. You know. And I was thinking, this is going to be interesting. If I hadn't called, what would have happened? You know? So I says, well, when do you want me to start? He says, well, when would you like to start? I says, as soon as possible, you know. So I ended up going to Detroit. And again, for that same guy, Fred Kirsch, if it hadn't been for him paying attention, you know, and me following up on it, you know, it wouldn't have happened. Meanwhile, though, I might as well go how I get to San Francisco. At the end, not the end of the year, but it was like, I think 6 or 7 months went by, and I was doing these crazy hours, and but you're supposed to get a vacation after 1 year, but somebody made a mistake. So I got a chance to go to San Francisco. And I went to San Francisco because my friend from art school had introduced her first 4 boyfriends. She was living there, and I'd always wanted to go to San Francisco. You know, flowers in the hair, that kind of stuff. No, I'm just kidding. I wanted to go to San Francisco, and so I flew there, and first trip out, and I remember waking up, excuse me, to the song, Jennifer Warren's song, "I'm Dreaming." You know, that's a song that was playing on the stereo as I woke up in her living room, and the light was different. You know, you could see it immediately because I came at night, and I said, "This is sort of interesting." And so I wandered around for like, what do you call it, 10 days, you know, and I came back. Oh, I wandered near the Examiner, San Francisco Examiner, and the guy Lee Romero was working there. Now I had read something about Lee Romero, how he had left newspapers because he was disgusted with what they were doing and the games they're playing, and he's working at the Examiner. So I figured he's working at the Examiner. That must mean something good is going on here. So I went up there, I showed the guy my portfolios. I brought the portfolios up, not looking for a job, but to show my friend Mary White, you know, from school, what I've been doing. And so he liked my personal stuff better than my newspaper stuff, which was a very good sign. Now, but there wasn't an opening there. So he asked if I stay in touch. So once again, I stayed in touch. Now I stayed in touch even though I went on to Detroit, you know, from San Francisco. So it was like 2.5 years before opening finally came. And the opening was, well, I talk with him at least once a month or a month and a half, 2 months sometimes, and you know, talk about everything, not just photography, but not you have a job opening, but just life in general, you know, because that's what it's about too. It's not just about, you know, photography. It's never what it's always about. And at that time, at one point, you know, Jonestown had it, and so now there's an opening, but that was not. I was not going to call about that. You know, that was not right and proper. I didn't call him back for about 3 months after that. You know, that happened, maybe 4 months. I mean,
well, there was an opening at Jonestown because they lost one of their guys.
Yeah, you know, the guy was killed there. And so I finally called them, you know, reluctantly after 4 months. I mean, I still don't know how to deal with something like that. I really don't. Because nobody, you know, you're doing it at a very human level, you know. It was the only way to be. And So anyway, I think he appreciated the fact that I didn't just try to call. And I'm sure a lot of people probably did, you know. But I don't know. So somebody has to get the job, but I didn't want it that way. At any rate, they asked me if I'd come out for a tryout. That got interesting because see, I didn't want my paper to know that I was going to go try out at the Examiner. And the funny thing is, about this time, I did some fashion stuff up here. You kept one picture back. I remember, that's one of my favorites also. But that's another story. I was shooting fashion. They really loved the stuff I was doing. And the lifestyle section was like an explosive kind of thing because you can do all kinds of work that not just the daily thing. And anyway, I was already with a friend of mine there. We were doing our own stories. Like this thing on a new wave entering Detroit. So we went up, followed up what was going on. And a friend said, okay, if I have to, I'll shoot the, you take the picture. I said, no, that's not necessary. I had to, you know, it was great because she was over enthusiastic. Meanwhile, I'd been waiting for a long time just to get it out of the newspaper. So I didn't care. I said, I'd rather let something go by than do something stupid, you know. It was a good match. You know, she wrote the stuff and I took the pictures. And even though we weren't assigned to do this, they got shocked, and the editors said, hey, what we didn't give you this. Hey, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay, that's good. That's good. So we did start circus comes to town. We joined the circus for a couple of days. You know, all kinds of stuff like that. But it wasn't like the pictures you're going to see in a normal paper. It was like as you're going to visit this place, this other world, which is you know, I was already into photojournalism. I was into photojournalism. I was into doing my own personal work. And I took a workshop with Gene Smith, 75, at ICP. That was like an amazing experience, you know. I mean, I knew what I wanted. Bruce Davidson, also in 75, ICP. So I knew, I mean, that was what I was aiming at all the time. And so working for that, but, you know, after the 13, I said, listen, they want me to stay for 2 weeks for a tryout. I said I could only be there for 1 week because that's all the time I had for a tryout. I figured if you don't know what I could do in 1 week, then it's like a waste of time anyway. It wasn't like arrogance. It's just that I figured if you know I have a way of looking at things and that they'd get it. You're smart enough to see. Then for some reason Detroit News said, "I'll take another week off because I've been working really hard." So I stayed there for about 13 days. And then I came back and people said, "We heard you were trying out San Francisco." So me? I was just visiting, you know. And anyway, I got the job, and that was a big leap forward because Eric Moskowskis, who's at the Daily News now, a real total, it's horrible, you know, from going from San Francisco Examiner to Daily News, New York Daily News, not a good thing, you know, and it's too big for one person to change. At the Examiner, we had the city editor and a number of other editors. They had all worked together. They were in the Army or military together, and they were interested in quality stuff, and you know, and at the Daily News, forget it. But because of that, because of him being at the Examiner at the time, did a photo essay on this housing project that was a real in-depth. It was very freeing. It's the first time I was ever able to work so freely and supported by, you know, your boss to go all the way. And then also Central America. I sent down it for 2 weeks and 2 months, and then sent down for another month. And that's after I kept on urging them to send somebody down there. And so finally, they thought about it, and they sent a team of people. You know, even popcorn's coming back. The team of people doing primer in Central America, and that was incredible. That was really fantastic because it was. They did it right. They did it right where you saw what was going on, and for somebody who didn't know, we had a lot of people in the areas in San Francisco from Central America, you know. So to do it right, you can't. It's not just a sensationalistic kind of thing. You have to really see what's happening in daily life, and that was like graduation time for me in some ways because that's what I wanted to do. What's people do in real life, and. Detroit, let's go back to Detroit. Detroit was fantastic because it was like normal people, you know, like blue collar. I found less bullshit, less lying, just, you know, I mean, people lying, whatever else, of course, everywhere. But there, it was like a more natural feeling of connecting on some levels. That's why I went back and did this documentary which is 11 minutes and 44 seconds. That's not a plug. I'm trying to get him what he plays here. Because I wanted to do something with gangbangers, but I didn't want to do something like in Los Angeles, which I was originally planning to do it, and where people were going to be, it's showtime.